I've got £9.5 million, the initial payment.
So that's going to be a payment on account.
Yeah.
Still looking at the summary.
So we're looking at two figures. There is an overall figure that will have to be paid, and I mentioned that at the top, 34 million or in the region of. But there's an initial payment, isn't there? And that's what we're talking about here.
Initial payment, payment on account, a down payment,
yes.
Which probably, I'm still looking at the judgment, probably within 14 days. Yeah. The newspaper asked for 10, I think they were offered 8, and did somebody say 9? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's 9.5 million is this initial payment, is what's coming to us. So that's
to be paid by 4 p.m. on the 28th of August.
OK.
So no surprises there. That sum is all insured, so the 7 claimants will not individually be having to put their hands in their pocket for that sum. It's all covered by after-event insurance.
So when they first went into, initially claimed went into this legal battle, they would have had insurance before, so it's not like they're having to split the costs between them?
Not at this stage. Where it becomes more complicated is that the court carried out cost budgeting in this case. That is to make sure that the costs were going to be reasonable and proportionate, and the court takes charge of cost management.
OK. I mean, so I just want to clarify that, because it sort of came in a bit of a sort of squidgy way, and we didn't really break it in a big way. We are talking about a figure of £9.5 million for this initial payment. And Colin, there was sort of confusion about whether it would be how it would be worked out, a standard payment or an indemnity basis. The indemnity basis was good for associated newspapers. Can you just explain that and how they've come to that £9.5 million?
Well, the 9.5, as I say, is just simply a payment on account, and there are no surprises there because they virtually agreed it. The indemnity basis and standard basis is where the interest lies. Standard basis costs have to be reasonable, necessary and proportionate, and the benefit of the doubt is given to the party paying them. However, where there has been conduct out of the norm, which the judge has found, which means costs can be awarded on the indemnity basis, the burden is reversed, and the paying party has the benefit, the receiving party has the benefit of any doubt, and the costs only need to be reasonable. So there's a much more generous basis. The second
much more generous for associated newspapers.
Yeah. The second striking thing is that if you go over your budget, so in this case the High Court judge approved a budget for reasonable, necessary and proportionate costs, you're unlikely to get any more than that unless you get a costs order on the indemnity basis, which the newspaper has done. And that means they're no longer constrained by the cost budget that the judge set. They don't have to show a good reason later on why they went over budget, and it will make it possible for them to recover the shortfall between the budgeted figure of 14 million, I think it was, and what they say their costs are now, which is 34.5 million.
Yeah. So just a reminder, 9.5 million, that initial payment. And Laura, so it was always going to be bad for Harry and those other claimants because they were going to have to make a payment. But this is the worst case scenario, is it?
Well, it's hard to say at this point because what we knew there would be an upfront payment. That payment would have to come. So when we're talking about the difference between £8 or £10 million and the judge deciding it's sort of just it's 9.5 million. These are big sums of money, obviously, to me and to you. But that was sort of expected. The bigger thing is what will be decided at a later date in terms of how much of the costs the claimants will have to pay for the bigger bill here. There is a much bigger bill down the road. This is just like an upfront payment. Now, one of the questions was, will a cap be set on that? Because let's not forget, this judge said very early on, pre-trial, how he believed that the costs were already manifestly excessive when we were talking about what it was costing both sides. He was not happy with how much they were spending. There was some suggestion he could cap it. He has not put a cap on today. He has also said that they can appeal, and that appeal would have to be made or the request would have to go in by the 2nd of October. And it's complicated because individual claimants can appeal for individual articles. So if you remember in Prince Harry's case, he thought he had a strong case with one of his allegations about an article written about flight details. And I think it's up to Prince Harry to decide, does he feel that he could then go back and appeal? I mean, what are the chances of getting insurance against an appeal? You'd think pretty low now, given the sums of money we're talking about. But Prince Harry might feel he wants to take it further. This was such an important mission for him, these cases, and he was so angry in the statement he released upon Judgment Day when he described it as a whitewash, feeling that justice and accountability had not happened. That may well happen, but in terms of the bigger sums of money, a costs judge, I think I'm right in saying,
yes,
will decide that at a later date, and it will be a costs judge who looks at this idea of whether or not he can award, or they can award, make an indemnity award. Is that correct?
Yes, the next stage, assuming there's no appeal, is that the newspaper will have to serve a bill for their 34.5 million, and then they must do that within 3 months. And that figure will then be assessed by a cost judge possibly in a year's time. So it's going to be another long process unless the cost can actually be agreed between the parties.
But there is an interim payment.
But there's an interim payment
banking
of
some of the money, but we don't know the full amount.
The interim payment, but I think it's very interesting, this line here. The court emphasised that indemnity costs order is not a blank cheque, and I think that refers back to this idea that the judge was furious that they were talking about millions and millions of pounds before the trial had even started, and already, as we've seen with what Associated are saying, their total bill comes to, it is far greater than the initial kind of cost. So this 34.5 million is way in excess of what people had thought it would cost.
So before we came on today, I had figures of either 7.9 million, which would be better for the claimants, or 9.9 million. We've got 9.5 million. So just me as the layperson, I'm thinking this is not good.
Well, it's not good
for Harry.
No, but the Harry's not going to have to pay that. As I said earlier, it's insured money, insured costs. But the total insurance they've got, according to what they've told the court, is 16.5 million. So, in theory, the claimants personally are liable for the difference between that figure covered by insurance and the 34.5 million. And that's where the importance of the indemnity costs order comes in, because it's going to make it much easier for the newspaper to recover the shortfall.
Yeah.
Is there any world in which that insurance, which is called after the event insurance, could be that there's a way out of the insurers having to pay? Was there anything that came up in the judgment or in the whole trial that
There was some suggestion in the newspapers, but I don't think it's got anywhere at all.
No, so that insurance they have £16.2 million in the bank basically to cover things so far.
But the initial payment, but the total payment, as we say, will go up to 34 million. Is there insurance to cover that?
No, there's not. No, the insurance is capped at, I think, 16.2. I'm so sorry.
So there will be money that
So there will
Harry
be a
and
shortfall which the
Yeah.
claimants personally may have to pay.